Good morning and welcome to the Boulder Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I am Reverend Lydia Ferrante Roseberry and I'm streaming from home today because my son has a mild case of COVID and I don't want to be exposing anyone. I sure wish I was there in person with you. This is a new experience for me, so it's actually good practice for me to be at home and experience a service as a Zoomie. I'm joined today by Service Associate Karen Griglack in the sanctuary, with Julie Morris playing the piano, Amy Austin leading hymns, John Sousa on guitar. Thank you so much, John, for being here. And our tech team, Larry Sherwood, Deborah Mensch, and Don Price on Zoom with me. I want to thank everybody who did a quick turnaround yesterday when I found out that my son had COVID, so I could still be a part of this service. And of course, I'm grateful for all of you who come each Sunday to be enlivened and connected to this spiritual community. As I say our welcome words today, I invite you to look around you, whether it's in a sanctuary with other masked people or in gallery mode on Zoom. You are all welcome here today. In the beauty of languages, cultures, skin tones, shapes, and sizes, abilities and personal challenges that come together in your uniqueness, you are welcome here. In all the ways you experience and express gender, you are welcome here. In the beauty that is who you love and how you love, you are welcome here. With all the traditions that inform your spiritual life, you are welcome here today. And no matter how long you are away, nor how soon until you return, you are welcome here. Whether you come with laughter in your heart or with tears, you are welcome here. You are invited to join us with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands. We welcome you today. We acknowledge that the land surrounding us is the stolen territory of the Arapaho people, and that many tribes roamed freely on this land for millennia before the arrival of white settlers. And we commit ourselves, as you will hear more about today, we commit ourselves to being a center for spiritual exploration and justice making, and to anti-racism and anti-oppression work within and beyond our congregation. If you're new here, we're glad you found us and hope that in this virtual community, you can still experience the warmth and love of this congregation and in the live community, which is in the sanctuary. Each Sunday is different here, so please come back a few times to really get to know us. We'll have many opportunities during the week for social connection and spiritual growth. Those on Zoom can check out the links to help you get better connected. And those in person, you can find a newcomer code in newcomer form on the QR code that's in the back of the hymnal, or stop by the welcome table in the foyer to help you get connected. And finally, if there's any visitors on Zoom who would like to introduce themselves in the chat, please do, because we really love to know who is among us.
And if this is one of your first visits and you are in the sanctuary today and you would like to introduce yourselves, hold on. Sorry. And you'd like to introduce yourselves by telling us your name and where you're from, you can raise your hand or stand up or have your neighbor raise a hand for you, and we'll bring you a microphone to introduce yourself.
I am Benjamin David Graves. I also am from Colorado, Lafayette. I live by myself. And second of all, I'll just tell you, everything is very short. A long time ago, my grandfather was a minister, similar to this as well. I went to a church at Camp Hill, but it's very similar of this church as well. Now, a couple of years ago, COVID, used to be no COVID. This was over there. So really, over new, I'm returning, and second off, I'm making a join right here with all of you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Anyone else this morning?
My name is Eileen Smith, and I'm from Longmont. I'm here with my good friend Constance. I've been meaning to come here for a long time, so it's good to be here.
Welcome. For those of you on Zoom, you're welcome to stay for the virtual coffee hour after the service. And for those here in the room today, you're welcome to stay and chat and have coffee over in the fellowship hall, being mindful of physical distancing since cases are high again. And as a reminder, any service participant that takes their mask off this morning had a negative COVID test this morning. So if you didn't take a COVID test this morning, we ask that you keep your mask on while you're in the sanctuary this morning, even while singing. If you have a chalice at home, you are welcome to light yours with me as I light our fellowship chalice. And so we know where all of our chalices are, please write in the chat, "Chalice lit in the name of your town." Please say the words along with me as I light our chalice. We light this chalice for the warmth of love, the light of truth, and the energy of action. And now I'll sing our bowl again, inviting it to draw you deeper into the present moment and this our beloved community. Our opening words this morning is a poem called Advice from a Tree by Ilan Shamir. Dear friend, stand tall and proud. Sink your roots deeply into the earth. Reflect the light of a greater source. Think long term. Go out on a limb. Remember your place among all living beings. Embrace with joy the changing seasons, for each yields its own abundance. The energy and birth of spring, the growth and contentment of summer, the wisdom to let go of leaves in the fall, and the rest and quiet renewal of winter. Feel the wind and the sun and delight in their presence. Look up at the moon that shines down upon you and the mystery of the stars at night. Seek nourishment from the good things in life. Simple pleasures, earth, fresh air, light. Be content with your natural beauty. Drink plenty of water. Let your limbs sway and dance in the breezes. Be flexible. Remember your roots. Enjoy the view.
Well, good morning. We are going to sing together. It's actually in one of our hymnals, but today we're not going to use the hymnal. You'll see the lyrics up here on the screen, and Zoomies, you will see those, I believe, in the chat. It's a peppy, energetic little number called Turn the World Around. which, boy, wouldn't that be awesome? So let's stand as you are moved to, or you may sit and join me in this song. We come from the fire, living in fire. Give what to the fire, turn the world around. We come from the water, living in the water. Go back to the water, turn the world around. We come from the mountain, living on the mountain. Go back to the mountain, turn the world around. Oh, so is life. Ah, so is life. Oh, so is life. Ah, so is life. Water make the river, river wash the mountain, fire make the sunlight, turn the world around. Heart is of the river, body is the mountain, spirit is the sunlight, turn the world around. We are of the spirit, truly of the spirit, only can the spirit turn the world around. Oh, so is life a body war. So is life. Oh, so is life a body war. So is life.
If you've been coming to the fellowship for a while, you may be used to summer services alternating between the UU principles and the UU sources. The principles and the sources themselves are found in Article 2 of the UUA bylaws. And they were originally written in 1961 when the two smaller denominations, the Unitarians and the Universalists, merged. They were then updated in the middle 80s. The principles guide our actions and priorities, encouraging congregations to affirm and promote core values, while our sources provide the context and grounding for these principles. Both can be found in the front of your hymnal, and they're now going into the chat. The 7 principles are the covenants that congregations make to one another as part of our Unitarian Universalist Association. And a part that it's congregational covenants is really important because we are an association of congregations, not necessarily of individuals. Our congregations are made up of individuals. Our association is made up of congregations. So the congregations affirm and covenant to one another the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Our second principle being the justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Our third principle, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Excuse me. Our fourth principle, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Our fifth principle, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. Our sixth principle, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And our seventh principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Now, I hope those are familiar to you, please. Otherwise, we have a lot of work to do as a congregation. We draw our inspiration from 6 sources: direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder, the words and deeds of prophetic people who challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil, the wisdom of the world's religions, which inspires us to our ethical and spiritual life, Jewish and Christian teachings, which call us to respond to God's love by loving our neighbors and ourselves as ourselves, and humanist teachings, which counsel us to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science and warn against idolatries of the mind and spirit. And finally, the spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions, excuse me, which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. Now, personally, I have found the sources to be quite dated, the way they're Eurocentric around Jewish and Christian teachings and lump all the other religious wisdom into something called world religions. And if you remember a few years back, I played around with them and we did something else with sources. But the principles and the sources as written in our bylaws may see, in the UUA bylaws, may seem like they're etched into a stone tablet, forever enshrined as dogma, especially if you've come from another religious tradition, but they're not. Much of the original language in Article 2, especially the section C, which focuses on the principles and sources, reflected compromises that were needed for the merger. They were fashioned by people just like you and me, who wanted an articulation of our free religious tradition that allowed for new understandings to continually break through. This is a foundational theology for liberal religion, that we believe that revelation is not sealed. And just in case you didn't know, much of what ended up in the canonization of the Bible also came out of committee work and compromise in like the 300s and 500s after Jesus died. The difference for us is that we believe that revelation is not sealed. There are always new truths to understand, and they can be incorporated into our lives as we gain this greater wisdom. And in fact, a few hundred congregations, including our own, have recently adopted an 8th principle at the request of the Black Lives of UU Collective. This group, in acknowledging and lifting up for us that, or helping us acknowledge and see how systemic racism is rooted even in our congregations, has asked that this become a principle so that we can put it forefront as we understand there's a new understanding and new wisdom about racism and how it impacts our lives. The 8th principle makes an explicit commitment to journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in our lives and our institutions. Now, even more beautiful part of Unitarian Universalism is we built in requirements to regularly look at Article 2 of the UUA bylaws. And that process is going on at the national level now in what's called the Article 2 Commission. I wish they had picked a better name because what they're doing is going to profoundly influence where we go forward. And they were charged by the General Assembly to place love at the center of their work. And that charge is so meaningful to me because surprisingly, the word love is not mentioned in any of our 7 principles. It shows up in our sources, but not in our principles. So a draft of the new articulation of our purposes and principles is due to the UUA board by January of 2023. So stay tuned on that one. We will be sure to be discussing them when they come out. And then because of our the way we govern ourselves, a congregation via their delegates at General Assembly will, over the course of a few years, be voting on them, and we'll have new principles and purpose. All that to say, we're deviating from our regular summer programming that goes principles, sources. And instead this summer, I thought we would dive closer into our own congregation's vision. Way back in 2015 and 2016, before Donald Trump was elected, before we watched in horror as one basic right after another was stripped away from us, before we saw children in cages at the border, before anyone used the word COVID as on a daily basis, before election deniers and an insurrection at the Capitol, before Boulder became another locale for a random mass shooting, before 1,000 homes, including some of yours, were destroyed in a climate change-related fire, Before Tad was our music director and Jessica was our director of lifespan faith formation. When the chairs in our then sanctuary were pushed to the side following each of our 2 services to make room for coffee hour. And the music director's office was in the cuddle room right outside the sanctuary. Way back when, under the able and agile leadership of Jim Highsmith, this congregation went through a strategic planning process whose end project was a strategic direction. That is a flexible document that shared our common vision and our dream for ourselves. We found our North Star as a congregation, that of being a center for spiritual exploration and justice making. And we often use the shortcut inner depth and outer focus. Our mission remained rooted in our values: love, reason, compassion, and justice. And we embarked on a building project so we could grow into the multicultural, multi-generational congregation that was linked in spirit and justice to our broader community. In early 2019, as our little beloved church building was transformed, we were hosted by our generous neighbors at First United Methodist Church. We watched our building come to life in weekly videos created by David Burrows. And we waited with anticipation for the day we would move into our new spiritual home. And it was just about complete in early 2020. And then we waited and waited some more and waited some more. And now here we are, finally settling into our new space with a new multi-platform way of being together in a very different world from 2016. And all of us are changed by all that has happened. I think it's a very exciting time to be growing into being a center for spiritual exploration and justice making. It feels like a time when so much is needed from us, but also, in the words of the poet Denise Levertov, when so much is in bud. Now, way back in 2016, I would have articulated spiritual exploration and justice making as 2, perhaps even distinct components of a faith-filled life. And today I understand that differently. Each year, right before General Assembly, the UUA president spends some time with ministers and religious educators. This year, during the Q&A with our president, the Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, she was asked by one of my colleagues how she managed to have such a pastoral and caring presence and such a prophetic voice and vision for Unitarian Universalism. Susan paused, and she got teary-eyed, as she often does, and replied almost humbly that to her they came from the same place, from her heart, and that it breaks open regularly. And that breaking open of her heart inspires her to respond with compassion and a pastoral presence, as well as the urgency of justice. She said they aren't different to her. And it reminded me of the words of American philosopher and public intellectual Cornel West, who aptly said, "Justice is what love looks like in public." And as Susan was sharing, I understood my own faith journey a little differently as well. As a young adult, let's just say a young whippersnapper, I was the executive director of a small San Francisco community organizing project. I predominantly worked on tenant rights in a neighborhood filled with despair. Experienced people move from that place of despair to one of hope while they were doing things like just trying to get gates on the front of their doors so they would feel safer. But that experience of their personal transformation is one way that I began to see and understand God or spirit or the power of love moving in the world. And there are moments today when that's still palpable to me. when we are doing something together in justice, or when we are having an intimate conversation, sharing about some of the biggest challenges that we face. But the organizing work that I was doing, it was hard. And sometimes, honestly, it got nasty, as my Alinsky style training invited me to believe that the ends justify the means. And sometimes we engaged in personal attacks rather than principled accountability. Now, at the same time that I was in the trenches doing this community organizing in San Francisco, I was also deeply immersed in my congregational life at the First Unitarian Church of Oakland. And I myself was being transformed, ready for a deeper life of service. And I began to see that the righteous anger and the call for justice is but one facet of healing the world. That small group ministries and religious education, that pastoral care and social connections, that singing together and laughing together are all a part of healing, of making the world more whole. And some might even call that salvation. These days, I'm understanding that spiritual exploration and justice making don't just inform each other. They're not just the yin and yang, each on one side of a coin, but they come from the same taproot, that taproot being love. There is a perennial tension in Unitarian Universalism, and I hear it sometimes in our congregation. Some folks feel that we're too focused on the spiritual stuff, and some folks feel we're too focused on justice. I can hear that actually within like 2 weeks from different people in the congregation, and it kind of pivots around. And that's just the nature of, I think, Unitarian Universalism. But what if we didn't pit them against one another? What if we understood them as arising from the same impulses? I believe we need to separate them out, spiritual exploration and justice making, from time to time and even routinely, to keep them supple and strong, the way one would isolate muscle groups when exercising. But what if we took more of our cues from nature and saw our lives, our systems as so profoundly interconnected that they actually could not be in conflict with one another? In her book, Emergent Strategies, Shaping Change and Changing Worlds, Adrienne Marie Brown quotes Morgan Mann Willis, who says, "Look at the anatomy of trees as one of nature's examples of successful organizing that realizes that our power is in our ability to be both fiercely centered and grounded, but also infinitely reaching toward our unique sources of energy, light, and growth. Each tree's elements are reliant on one another, but totally unique in form and function. There is no competition or pressure to be the root or the trunk or the buds that bloom. Each tree is a universe, a master delegator, a puzzle, and a puzzle piece. They have encouraged me to not worry so much about making everyone feel important and to focus on how to create systems and support efforts where everyone is important. And they're clear on how their work is unique, crucial, and totally interconnected. So this summer, as we alternate between spiritual exploration and justice making, I invite you to imagine that we are isolating them to strengthen each, but that in fact, they are part of the same living system, grounded in the same roots that we share within Unitarian Universalism and roots that we share with all of humanity. Now, in a few moments, Karen's going to explain how we're going to help each other along with that concept.
In Jim Yerman's poem, Conversation with a Tree, part of that conversation goes something like this. We had a wonderful conversation, and though we didn't always agree, I have to say that I was impressed with the wisdom of the tree. I asked her where her wisdom came from as she swayed in the early morning breeze. She said, not only do her roots run deep, but they connect with all the other trees. She said, I may look like I am one tree standing on my own, but being linked to all the other trees means I never stand alone. Which means, she said, you're not talking exclusively to me. Since I am connected to all the others, I am more than just one tree. And though she didn't come right out and say it, I'm sure the message was meant for me. Her subtle way of saying humans should be a little more like trees. Now, we are all our own individual trees with our many leaves and our own sways of life. Sometimes the sways are gentle, and sometimes we are hoping against hope that our roots will keep us holding on to the ground. And if you spent any time around here, including the last half hour, you will hear that our congregation, our tree trunk, if you will, is rooted in love, compassion, reason, and justice. And we remind ourselves each week that we are that center for spiritual learning and justice making. And these two ideals, as you've heard, are fed by those same roots, and they become expressions of who we are as individuals, as a congregation, and who we are in the greater community and this world. It links our trees to the other trees and to our place in the forest. And our spiritual practices, whatever they are, and what our, new tongue, let's try again. Our spiritual practices, whatever they are our way to recharge our hearts, our brains, and that spark that makes us us. They are the quiet moments that give us pause and rest so that we can go out into the world and do all of the hard things and all of the hard work that needs doing. Because you can't fill someone else's teacup if your own teapot is empty. So for this summer series, we are going to work on a project together. I have created a tree. And that tree represents the roots and the trunk and the branches of this congregation. And I'm going to invite everyone in here to help us create leaves for our tree after the service. Those on Zoom, you get a chance to put your input in during the offering. And I want you to add, for those of you in this room, your individual leaves to the tree. And those spiritual practices that sustain you, or what your social justice work means to you. If you would join us over in the fellowship hall following the service to create your leaf, and I will go ahead and add those to the tree to fill out the branches with a little piece of you. Each week, we'll put a cloud in the sky to help remind us of the practices and the topics of justice making that we cover, to be a reminder of those lofty ideals that we each work for in ourselves, in our community, and in the world. Thanks for your help, and blessed be. Each week, we remind ourselves of the abundance of our lives and this community by giving half of our plate away to those organizations that share our values. This Sunday, our offering will go to the Boulder County NAACP to support their outreach programs. BVUUF is a member of the NAACP's Religious Action Committee, and today's donations will go towards support of youth and community programming, like the Martin Luther King Jr. Weekend, the recent Juneteenth celebrations, and the upcoming bystander training for youth. For more information, contact Reverend Lydia, Diane Ladd, or Mary Gibb. Our representatives on the Religious Action Committee. And to find out more about the activities, go to the website naacpbouldercounty.org. You can text your donation at the number that you see on your screen. If you're in the fellowship today, you are also welcome to place your donation into the offering plate as it passes. Please give generously, as you so often do. As our musical reflection begins, we invite you to think about, if you're in the room, or write into the chat your answer to this question. Those in the chat, we will write those down for you and add your leaves to the tree. What spiritual practice is important to you? Or, what does doing social justice work mean to you? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's so nice to be back again. I just got back from, I was in Europe for 2 months, and I think I saw you all just before I left. And it's nice to be home. And a few of the pieces I'm playing this morning are I learned from an English guitarist named Martin Simpson, and it's a medley of a few British Isles folk tunes. Bonnie Bogey's Bell, The Shearing's Not For You, and Rosie Anderson. So I'm going to continue with that theme and hope you enjoy it.
For the work of the fellowship and for the work of NAACP Boulder Counter, we dedicate these offerings. That was quieter. And now I want to invite us into our time of community connection and our time of sacred sharing. If you're on Zoom and you'd like to share a joy or a concern, please type it into the chat, sending it to everyone, and let us know briefly what is in your heart today. And Reverend Lydia will read those aloud, what you share. And I'll add a stone to our sacred waters on your behalf. If you're in the sanctuary today, you can come up front and share your joy or your concern using the microphone and add a stone to the waters. And you are always welcome to add a stone in silence. Whoever you are and wherever you are, please tell us your name, where you live, and briefly share. Thank you.
Let's pause now for prayer as I adjust to being both on Zoom and in the sanctuary on a screen. Beloveds, these are incredible days, days when many of us have joys and concerns that remain in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts. Days when we know that our reproductive freedoms are being curtailed and the long-term pain and suffering that will cause to people over time. We know in these times that many are suffering with their own personal concerns, with friends who are dying, with loved ones who are in need of healing. Many of us know people who are extremely isolated, some of us having mental health challenges of our own after so much isolation. These are the times when it is so vitally important that we remain together, that we understand our profound interconnectedness, and that our survival, not only as human beings, but as a planet, is dependent upon our ability to remain together. Let us now, in this new time that we find ourselves in, let us now be the ones that bring people in, bring people together. Remind ourselves that laughter and joy are as much a part of our needs as is the incredibly hard work of justice. These are trying times, beloved, and they can also be beautiful times. May we be the ones to bring love and joy and justice into this world day after day after day. So much is in bud. May this be our promise and our prayer.
We are going to join together in singing a song that I think oh, never mind. We will have John play again.
Well, I feel so touched by Lydia's final message there. And I want to leave you all with some Irish jigs to end on a note of joy. And if you feel like dancing or getting up and moving, please do. And great to be here again. Thanks for listening.
So for those of you who are expecting a chat with the minister today, things have changed a little bit, but she will be staying on Zoom to chat with whoever would like to chat with her on Zoom. If you all would like to help me extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this chalice, but not the warmth of love, the light of truth, nor the energy of action. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again. So here's a gentle reminder I want to send you off that comes from our opening words. Be content with your natural beauty. Drink plenty of water. Let your limbs sway and dance in the breezes. Be flexible. Remember your roots. Now go forth and enjoy the view. Blessed be.